Hi everybody, TJ Mac Vintage Cards here, and today I'm going to do another episode where I talk about what I enjoy about my vintage card collection. And in this one, I'm going to really highlight some of the emotions that my cards bring out in me. And these cards, for anybody who has collected a long time, and especially collect cards that are vintage, there's that attachment to them, be it the memories or the history. There's that added connection that really draws us to these cards. They're just far more than just cardboard, pictures of ball players. They really are something that embodies who we are as people, at least for me. And that's really what I want to share in this particular video is some of those cards and how they connect to me. So the first one I'm doing here is the 67 Topps Mickey Mantle. And this to me is the card that makes me feel the saddest of any in my collection. And there's a couple reasons for that. The card on the left is a raw version of that Mantle card that was given to me by my father when I got back into collecting in the year 2000. My dad passed away many years ago, and I just remember him whenever I look at this card. And the one on the right is a graded version of that card that I have in my 67 Topps card case that I display. I have 30 card cases that I put various years in that I display in my card room, and that Mantle goes along with the 67 group that I have. But the other thing that really is sad to me about this card as well is that it was 1967 when Mickey Mantle hit his 500th home run on Mother's Day, May 14th of that year. And I'll put the video down below, and many of you are Mantle's fans have probably seen it, but it was a real gray, dreary day at Yankee Stadium, and you can see Mantle at the plate. He was batting left-handed that day, and he suddenly just muscles this ball over to the right field stands. And when he hits it, it's a half-filled crowd when it lands into the stands, and you would think a player of his caliber, it would have been a sold-out stadium, but they just didn't really look at achievements, I think, in the way that they do nowadays. The Yankees weren't very good at the time, and could you imagine if he did that today, how filled the stands would be? But I think it's really fitting for the player that Mantle was, because you can see him rounding the bases, and there's really just a sadness to it, because he had his head down as he was known to do, whether he hit a home run to win a World Series game or if it was this 500th home run. He just had his head down, hobbling around the bases, and then he crossed home plate, and he was greeted by a teammate and a couple of kids who came out from the stands, it looks like, to pat him on the back. And Mickey in this video doesn't even gesture to the crowd. He just scoops off his batting helmet. He would grab it with the back of his with his hand off the back of his head, which was his trademark, as he headed into the dugout. It's just a real sad moment for me for some reason. And though he was still an above-average player at that time, he was 35 years old. His skills had been continuing to decline. His last great season was in 1964 when he was 32 years old. And as we know with Mantle, there's always that what could have been, which is real intriguing about him to many. And had he been healthy and took better care of himself, maybe he would have been hitting his 600th home run on that day in May. And the other thing about this card that connects to me is my dad was born in 1948, and his childhood followed the rise and inevitable decline of Mantle. He was 13 years old when Mantle and Maris battled it out for Babe Ruth's record. And then when this 500th home run was hit in 1967, he would have been 19 years old. His childhood was in the past, and just like the greatness of his hero was also in the past. So there is that sadness to me when I look at this card. Still like to have it in my collection because sadness is not a bad emotion to feel from time to time, and it just adds to the connection of the card. Now, where the Mantle card makes me sad, it's this card here that makes me feel really good. This is the 1976 O-Pee-Chee Mark Fidrych, and the 77 O-Pee-Chee Mark Fidrych. And the 77 O-Pee-Chee is very similar to the 77 Topps cloth sticker version of the Mark Fidrych card. And on the regular 77 Topps issue, it has the All-Star banner down here and a rookie cup on it. I went ahead and got this one because I really liked the look of it. The O-Pee-Chee is not quite as common as the Topps version, and I just really like this card. And what I love about this card that makes me happy is just the smile on this young man's face. It means even more when you know the story of what Mark Fidrych had done. Now, the 1961 season is one that I wish I could have lived through because of the historic Mantle Maris race and just the season in general. But Fidrych is one of those players that I would have loved to see play in Detroit during the summer of 1976. Now, I was alive during that time, but I was way too young to remember this gangly young man from Worcester, Massachusetts. And you had to love his childlike enthusiasm, the authentic quirkiness he showed by talking to the baseball, his squatting down to manicure the pitcher's mound during the game. And then he would run over to congratulate players on routine outs. You know, he's just like a kid in Little League almost. And baseball has never seen anything like him before or since. And a lot of the games he pitched in that year were not televised. You got to remember this was the 1970s. But in June of 1976, he appeared before a national audience against the New York Yankees. And this game is actually on YouTube. And so many people were watching the game. One of the men from his hometown said, you could hear the cheering from house to house. And that really resonates with me because I grew up in the city and we had real small, like 35-foot wide lots. And we didn't have air conditioning when I was a kid. And you could hear your neighbors a lot of times. And I could just picture it on that night against the Yankees, the same thing happening. And what was cool is Fidrych went on to beat the New York Yankees that night. And the Yankees later went on to the World Series that year. And he finished the season with a 19-9 record with a 2.34 ERA and finished second in the Cy Young voting. Unfortunately, he was a one-season wonder as he injured his knee fooling around during spring training in 1977, and he was really just never the same pitcher after that. But for that 1 year in 76, this man caught lightning in a bottle, and I'm just real pleased to have this card in my collection, and it's just one that really makes me smile when I do see it. Now, with these four cards here, I'll admit this is a memory that I'm not sure what I actually saw or read about later, as I was very young at the time this game that I'm going to talk about took place. Now, I don't remember much about Roger Staubach's career, but what I do remember, I believe, is there was a game in December 16th, 1979 against the Redskins that I'm pretty sure I was watching, and it was for the division title. Now, the Redskins took the lead 17-0 before Dallas scored 21 unanswered points to take the lead 21-17. And this game was for all the marbles, pretty much, division, championship, and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So Dallas took the lead 21-17, and then the Redskins took the lead later on 34-21 with 5 minutes left in the game after John Riggins, who's right here, ran off a 66-yard touchdown run. And Riggins ran all over the Cowboys that day for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, the Redskins were acting like they had won the game, and they thought they were a team capable of going to the Super Bowl. But then Captain Comeback, Roger Staubach, came into the game, and he was a player that knew how to snap victory from the jaws of defeat. And the first thing he did is he hit Ron Springs on a touchdown pass, and then with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the game, the score was 34-28. Now, this was an era where points are scored as quickly, or were not scored as quickly as they are today. And then the Redskins got the ball back, and then Dallas stopped Riggins on a 3rd and 1, keeping their hopes alive. Staubach gets the ball back. He takes the Cowboys down the field, and then reading a Redskins blitz with just 40-something seconds left in the game, he hits Tony Hill, who's depicted on his 79 Topps rookie card right here, for an 8-yard touchdown. And then the Cowboys go on to win 35-34, knocking the Redskins from a division title and home field advantage throughout the playoffs to completely out of the playoffs. This was Roger Staubach's last win as a professional football player because the Cowboys would go on to lose their first game in the playoffs. So this is a grouping of cards that just has real nice memories to me and just how we can capture the history of the game and our connection to the players through our cards. And these four cards really show that. So I'm just real pleased to have this grouping, and when I see them together, it really makes me think of that game. And the last card I'm going to show today is a recent pickup, and it's really just moved into being one of the most beautiful cards in my collection. It's this 1955 Bowman Bobby Dillon, and this is just another card that where I just look at it and it makes me smile. Even though I don't have like a historical connection to it, or it was never like again part of my history of collecting, is just a card that really just resonates with me just because of its beauty, and the appearance of it really is a work of art with the green uniform that the Packers have on here, and that bright, bold yellow background going off against those gold pants with the green again, and it's just got a really cool logo here. Really just love the look of this card, and it's just one that really gives me that emotional connection just because of its beauty as a piece of art. And Bobby Dillon was a very good player. He played with the Packers from 52 to 59, and unfortunately he played before the Lombardi dynasty of the 60s. I think he only played 1 year with Vince Lombardi, which was his only winning season as a player. And it's pretty sad because he was really the best player on the Packers defense at that time. He played safety where he intercepted 52 passes in just 94 games. And remarkably, he did this with one eye. His left eye was removed when he was only 10 years old. And in his career, he was a 5-time first-team All-Pro and was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2020. So just another card that I just love to show and display in my card room, and I can't wait to get this one shown off. So that's all I have today, but before I do go, I want to give a quick shout-out to a new channel, and the gentleman's name is Drew, and the channel's called The Drew. And I'll put a link down to his channel below, and I just hope that you give it a chance and check it out because he's really a great storyteller, and it's my connection to him is through his stories that he tells, because I think even though our stories may be different, those of us who really appreciate the history of the game and have a long storied history in collecting really appreciate those connections that each of us share. Because let's face it, most of these cards we show, we can see anytime we want. But what I appreciate is the connections that people have to their cards. And that's what really resonates with me when I watch a lot of videos on YouTube. So everybody have a great Easter, and we'll talk again soon.